Good morning, Mayday, Mayday. Good morning. You're inside the locker room. Good morning, Tega.
That's not the Mayday we are talking about. Good morning, everybody. This Mayday, nobody's looking for help. Everybody's happy for the celebration.
Yeah,
All right. Good morning. Happy Workers' Day to all workers. How are you doing? And yes, they are making your Workers' Day perfect with the UEFA Champions League. All right. So we'll be talking about that. The UEFA Champions League. There were little tears yesterday in Madrid, because Rafa Nadal played his last match at the Madrid Masters. We'll touch a little bit on that. But we also want to hear your thoughts. Nigerian Super Eagles have a new coach. What do you think about your new coach? All right. So in fact, from the straight off now, Omatseye, tell us how we can be a part of the locker room so they know where they send their messages to on their thoughts about the new Super Eagles coach.
to be part of the conversation inside the locker room this morning, please send your messages over to the WhatsApp platform. That will be on 0809 444 0981 will be where we read the messages. 0809 444 0981. We'll look forward to also getting those messages on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/smooth981 FM Lagos. Subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can always go back to see past edition of the locker room and many other contents there. And then leave your comments there. We'll pick them up from there. Tega, that's done.
Can we
Tega.
do the headlines?
So on the bill this morning, Finidi George appointed as Super Eagles coach as Nadal falls to Laheka in final Madrid Open match, and Jabeur stunned by Keys in Madrid quarterfinals as Vinicius hits brace as Real Madrid come back to snatch a draw. Then we're here to enjoy it, says PSG boss Luis Enrique. Then cheerful Thiago Silva to leave Chelsea at the end of the season as Vardy leads Leicester to championship title. Then US-Mexico withdraw joint bid for the 2027 Women's World Cup. These and more.
Start with what is happening in Nigeria. And yes, everybody has been waiting to hear who they will pick. Some people even started to release their own rumors of who they hired, their heart's desire, because that's what I can call it. Um, but it's been announced officially that somebody has been chosen. All right, so let's hear the story.
Finidi George has been appointed as the new Super Eagles coach. The NFF, that's the Nigerian Football Federation, announced Georgie's appointment on Monday in a statement on its website.
So, huge statement. That's official. They announced it on the website. Again, hopefully that's official. Let's keep our fingers crossed because we've seen all these things happen before and then the person didn't show up. But this is Finidi George, former Super Eagles player, former Ajax player. He coached in Spain, and he was assistant coach to Jose Pesero for the African Cup of Nations. He was also the interim coach when Nigeria had to play the friendlies. So in Morocco. So and he beat Ghana. That's the one I cannot forget. He beat Ghana for the first time in years. So on that note, he would have my vote. But yes, John Finidi is the new coach of the Super Eagles now. There've been mixed reactions trailing this. Some people's own reaction has been, what's his tactical and technical expertise? All the questions we like to ask, and when we try to feel, intellectual and very philosophical and deep. And some people have been asking some real questions. What's the contract for? How long? What are the terms of the contract? How long is the contract? How much are they paying him? We don't want to come and hear that, they did a handshake contract. Then tomorrow we hear they've been owing him for 9 months. So what are the terms of the contract? And those are the important questions. Well, the details are not out yet. But we wait till they release those details because yes, the announcement was made, but there's still some other issues that have to be ironed out. Who are his backroom staff? Because a coach is nothing without his backroom staff. He can't do all the work alone. And he was announced as coach, but backroom staff, um, all the way down. We still need to find out all the details. So these are questions that need to be answered, and they'll be answered as we go along. But on first glance, let's ask everybody, what are your thoughts on George Finidi becoming the coach of the Super Eagles of Nigeria? Before we start asking about the World Cup qualifiers, numbers to send your messages to are
0809-444-0981, 0809-444-0981.
all right.
WhatsApp
So just
messages.
you can send your WhatsApp message. Just tell us what you think about Super Eagles' new coach, George Finidi. All right, let's go to the next story and what's happening in Madrid.
In Madrid, the former world number one, a five-time champion in the Spanish capital, waved an emotional farewell to the tournament after losing in straight sets to Jiril Leheka.
So I don't know why anybody else is shocked that he lost to Jiril Leheka, and I get it. A lot of people are still looking at Rafa Nadal like the Rafa Nadal in his prime, the king of clay. This is an old man playing. And an old man whose body has broken down. So he had said, so here's how it happened. After beating Alex de Minaur, the guy who knocked him out of the Barcelona Open, immediately after, he said that his body felt all right. That's what he said that night. Then he woke up the next morning, and like a 30-plus-year-old, he was like, I don't know if I can beat Jiril. I don't know if I can beat Jerry Leheka, seeing as my body is feeling now. So you
Yeah.
know how you'd have gone to the gym, you'd work out, and you'd feel great after the gym, and then you sleep and wake up, and that's when all the muscles start to remind you that you did something that your body wasn't really prepared for the day before. That's probably how he felt, because and the night before he said he was fine, that his body feels great, that his body has not told him anything yet. Then the next morning, he's like, given how I feel, right now,
Yes.
I'm not sure I can beat this guy. And considering the fact that,
Oh, no.
the Hector serves very well and he has a very big forehand, which means he's going to be doing a lot of running. He's not sure he could beat the guy. So, it's a huge deal for him. And he had said it before. And then some people, you know how fans can be. And again, some of them may have been carrying the thought of the previous Rafa Nadal, and some of them could have been fans of other people who just feel like he's talking too much. And they're like, oh, he keeps downplaying his chances of winning this. The guy is not downplaying anything. If you know anything about Rafa Nadal, he calls it as he sees it. Not necessarily as it is, but as he sees it. And so if he saw that his body was acting up and he was not going to be able to beat the Heshka, perhaps all of you should have listened, because they got on court and he lost in straight sets, and he gave a good fight. 7-5 in the first set, and then 6-1, 6-3 in the second set. He gave a good fight, but he was broken, and he couldn't break Leheshka's serve, because every time he looked like he was getting close, Leheshka came up with one big serve, either down the line or down the middle. It was tough. You could tell he was struggling physically. And so after he lost, of course, they had prepared that. Look, they knew that that whichever match he lost at Madrid was going to be his last match at Madrid. So they actually had a trophy waiting for him. Wow. So yeah, they brought out a trophy for him. There was some emotional speech. There was some applause. Some people started to cry because now they know that the end is near. It took us back all the way back to Roger Federer when he was retiring. Oh goodness, there was everywhere Roger Federer went, there were tears. It was almost like it was not a farewell tour. It was a mourning tour. So the tears flowed at Madrid again. We're still going to see him, play a few more tournaments, and especially I know he's going to play at Laver Cup. Now, what I don't know is if Laver Cup is where he's going to announce that retirement, because that's Roger Federer's tournament. Roger Federer is his guy, so that could be it. So if you have any handkerchief left or any tears left, just get ready. There'd be more tears. But yeah, yesterday was very emotional. And he lost, and that was his last match in Madrid. Well, another Spaniard was in action yesterday, and my goodness, did he frustrate everybody. Carlos Alcaraz. This guy could have won this match in straight sets and been lounging on one of the beaches in Madrid. Guess what he did? He fumbled and wobbled and extended this match to a third set. And even in that third set, he was this close to being knocked out. Um, and at the end of the day, he breathed a sigh of relief. He said, "Oh, I like the pressure, but trust me, I'm not sure that his coach will be liking it because some of the mistakes he made that came off his racket to elongate that match were really schoolboy errors, some inconsistencies you won't expect from a player at his level. So I'm sure that Juan Carlos Ferrero will have a thing or two to say about it, and especially as they're trying to manage that his forearm injury. Um, they want him to win as many matches as quickly as possible. So for you to extend the match into 3 sets and extend it even further, it's a tough one for him. But I'm guessing I wanted to be a fly on the wall, when his team met after the match, but it was a terrible outing. Yannick Sinner, on the other hand, won his match, and the women's side, Iga Swiatek, continued her brilliance. Even if she dropped the first set to Beatrice Haddad-Maia, she came back and won, bageled the Beatrice in the second set and won the third set brilliantly. But Madison Keys is in brilliant form now, and yesterday she came from a set and a breakdown to knock out Ernst Jabeur. So that's what's happening on the women's side and what's happening on the men's side.
Before we beat Madrid farewell, it's just the words, the emotional words that came off of uh, Nadal when he talked about how he wished he could play longer so he could give his boy who sat by the side one of the games he wants a memory of daddy's days on the courts. That for me was one of the comments I just can't get off my mind. But like you said, his body's as old as your car. Let's move on. All right, let's go over now to the next story here where Vinicius, Real Madrid forward Vinicius Jr. scored a double, including an 83rd minute equalizing penalty to snatch a 2-2 draw at Bayern Munich in Tuesday's Champions League semi-final.
Yes, and sometimes when it comes to Real Madrid, it doesn't matter who is favorite as long as you're playing against Real Madrid. Just know that you're playing one of the most persistent and the most resilient and the most resolute teams in the league. It doesn't matter how much ball possession you dominate. It doesn't matter how much chances you create. Real Madrid will take their few chances and make you suffer for it. And Bayern Munich had that. They were dominating the early exchanges in the game. They held possession, and then against the run of play, one brilliant pass from Toni Kroos, and Real Madrid were 1 goal up. And then in the second half, it looked like Bayern Munich had turned things around in the space of a few minutes. First of all, Leroy Sané, the most inconsistent and, in my opinion, the most overhyped player I've seen in my life, stepped up and for once, like a broken clock, how they say a broken clock, even a broken clock is right twice a day. He was right once yesterday. He stepped up and he scored this brilliant solo run, beating Lunin in the bottom right. And immediately after that, Real Madrid gave away a penalty. Harry Kane steps up, scores a penalty, and it looked like Bayern Munich had turned things around. They were playing at home. The fans had got wild. I saw Karl-Heinz Rummenigge. I was like, "Do you realize that you're old? You will take out your hip the way you're jumping." But everybody was excited that the entire stadium was electrified, and they thought that yes, they finally turned it around and they're going to get a win against Real Madrid. Somebody said, "Whose side?" Because Real Madrid came back and they went away with a draw. Real Madrid's new motto should be at all, at all. That should be their new motto. Whenever they step out, at all, at all. They came out with a draw. And so it sets up that tie for a really brilliant second leg that will be taking place in Madrid. But yes, Champions League delivered yesterday as requested.
It is still the locker room on Smooth 98.1 FM. We urge you to leave your messages on 0809-444-0981. Remember, Tega still getting your reactions. What's your opinion of Finidi George being appointed as a Super Eagles coach? All of those and more relating to the stories you can send over to the WhatsApp platform on 0809-444-0981. You can also catch a live stream on youtube.com/smooth 981 FM Lagos.
Plenty of vegetables like a pork with a rich taste of non-seasoning cubes. Even better. Oh, go ahead and elevate your meals with more vegetables and the rich taste of no cubes. Today, eat for good. One experience. Take off into a level casino games and find your new experience. Play in the net and see if maybe locks on your side. Land winning combination and slots and hit the jackpot. Discover much more games on one expert. Register on one expert with promo code Casino MG and get the welcome package up to 700,000 naira plus 150 FPS. Select the on the casino and the champion. You're lucky and you won't go champion. Especially for your breakfast show on
You're still inside the locker room on Smooth 98.1 FM. Tega still here and getting proceedings going for us this morning. So let's begin. Tega, you asked for messages relating to opinions relating to the appointment of Super Eagles
Let's take
coach.
some of those messages.
I see one on the rising waiting. Alfred sent in a message and he says, well, the appointment of Finidi is just the start of a good thing. And I think all Nigerians should support him for his big job. That's what Alfred has to say. And I'll go over to, that's the only message on YouTube, on WhatsApp for now. Let's go over to YouTube and see if they left a message. Okay, none yet. So we can now move on to the stories now, Tega. Let's go over to our next story where Paris Saint-Germain manager Luis Enrique on Tuesday dismissed talk aside with feeling the heat before this midweek Champions League semi-final first leg against Borussia Dortmund, saying, quote, "We're here to enjoy it."
I like the way he keeps talking. And you have to remember that Luis Enrique did not have a so great season at the start, just like Bayern Munich, that had fallen out of everything, knocked out of the cup by 30th team, lost the league to the Bundesliga champions. At the time, they were trailing by maybe 16 points. And then we're talking about so Bayern Munich didn't really have a great season, and suddenly at the business end of the UEFA Champions League, they are in it with a shout. That's kind of the same way PSG was. Not pretty, not convincing, not dominant, but somehow they slowly snuck their way into the semi-final, and they have a fantastic draw. They're playing against Borussia Dortmund, the side that also hasn't really had a completely impressive season all through. So it's open chance for them or open season for them. And some people have said their favorites to win, and he's dismissed them. Now people are saying that, okay, you know what? Whether you dismiss us or not, you must be under pressure, seeing as you are the team with Kylian Mbappe, you are the team that spent a lot of money to get here, and you're competing against a Borussia Dortmund side that tends to, build players for other teams to buy. Um, so you remember the Lewandowskis, the Erling Haaland, the Jude Bellinghams. Yeah, they all came from there. So they build players for other people to buy. So basically, you're playing against an academy side. So you must be under pressure. And he's saying we are here to have fun. Oh, guy, you will know whether you're here to have fun when you lose. Because the bosses right now, they've made their calculations. They're like, finally, our opportunity to win this UEFA Champions League. We've bought several superstars. We haven't won this Champions League. And
Yes.
just when we've sold every superstar we have, including one that is about to leave in the summer, we are about to get our hands on this Champions League trophy. You now get there. Once you bottle the job, you now go and tell them that, oh, we're just there to have fun. You tell them if that's excursion. Whether they spent all that money for you to go for excursion. So it's a match for Luis Enrique to completely take advantage of. I would say, given on paper, given the strength of both teams, his team does have advantage, and yes, his team has the players over the Borussia Dortmund team players. They have the names, so then all they need to do is play as a team to get the result that they desire. And if he can navigate that correctly, then he's definitely going to the finals. I don't know, barring a great team performance, how Borussia Dortmund would knock out PSG. But I do remember that it was this same Borussia Dortmund side that knocked out Atletico Madrid. So let's not completely write them off. However, it is advantage PSG. And no, they are not going there to have fun. They are going there to win, to qualify for the finals.
Well, if you're not there to enjoy it, it's always hard to say goodbye. But that's what Brazilian defender Thiago Silva will leave Chelsea at the end of the season after a dream 4-year spell at Stamford Bridge. Silva announced his farewell on Monday in an emotional video message on Chelsea's website.
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of exits from Stamford Bridge because they're still building and rebuilding, and they have a lot of players. Remember one time that they said they had too many players, they had to expand the locker room. They still have a lot of players on their books, and here's what's funny: they're still going to buy. So at the end of the day, players are going to go. Now, Thiago Silva's own was pretty obvious. He's an older player. He's at the end of his career. So yes, it's easy to make that announcement. But the announcements that are going to be a little tricky are the questions of all the young players that they bought that have come and have struggled at Stamford Bridge. And that will be interesting to see who they decide to sell and who they decide to keep, because when you're building a team, even if some people are not necessarily outstanding, they can be great squad players. And so that decision will come down to how the team wants to progress going forward. It's also interesting because it will also come down to the coach that is in charge. Are they keeping Mauricio Pochettino, or are they going to bow to the fans' pressure and also be telling Mauricio Pochettino farewell, that, you know what, you've tried, but you haven't got it together? So these are all the questions that they will need to answer at Stamford Bridge. Thiago Silva's decision was the easiest, like I said. He's older now. Retirement age. He can decide that he's going to America. It's fine because that's the end of his career. But for the young ones who had left other clubs, moved for big money, moved for spotlight and moved for the glory, and didn't get, well, they only got the money, they didn't get the spotlight and the glory. The question is, what are the decisions that are going to be taken from here on out? Where do they go from here? Chelsea doesn't mind selling at a loss. They have a billionaire who is eager to bring out his checkbook and write another check.
Is Abramovich back in the
No,
reckoning?
well, Todd Bowley is also a billionaire. He has money. Why do you think he's all going on his spending spree? Every time somebody, remember when Chelsea was buying everybody off the street? If you juggle the ball too well, he'll be like, that guy looks like a good player, buy him. He was splashing, bring him on. He was splashing the cash and signing all these long-term contracts. So you see like a 7-year contract. You're like, if you don't want to die there, those are the things that will now come into play when they're going to do their trade. But they have to sell a lot of players, and they have to bring in the right kind of players. And those are going to be the big issues that we'll be looking at Stamford Bridge. So sad one for Abramovich. Yes, it was emotional, because he really gave his all for the team, but it just didn't bring out any glory at the end of the day. And anyway, he's older now. So, and his wife always had a lot to say at the end of the match. So I'm sure we'll not be having any after-match drama after he leaves. But let's see how he progresses to Stamford Bridge from now on out.
Then we race down still, Jamie Vardy scored twice in Leicester, celebrated their promotion back to the Premier League, in style on Monday with a 3-0 win at Preston that secured the championship title. Did he stay long there?
Yes, remember Leicester City, when they went down, some of their best players were bought. Somebody took Maddison, and that one took Harry Barnes. People were taking their players every other minute. And Leicester City had great players. Remember, Leicester City had just won the Champions League, the Premier League. A few seasons ago, they had played in the Champions League. So can you imagine falling from that level? The great was their fall. A lot of people moved on quickly from their fall. But their fall was so great because if you're Jamie Vardy, you remember lifting up the Premier League. You remember playing in the Champions League. And next thing you know, you are in the Championship, playing with people that don't care about your ACL, about your Achilles. They are just going to kick you anyhow. where you used to play 38 games and just stroll around the pitch. Now you're playing
prestige football.
exactly. Now you're playing 45 WWE matches. It's a completely different kettle of fish. The fall was great. But the good news is that they did not want to be in this their new face me, I face you. They're like, we're going back to the Premier League. They're Premier for a reason. We're going back to primetime television. And they fought and they won. So they didn't get here via the playoffs.
Yeah.
They didn't get here by just making a cut. They actually won the championship. That's how
with a statement.
Yes, that's a champion's mentality. We won the Premier League. What is championship, my friend? And they took it well. Towards the end, there were one or two matches where they dropped the ball a little, but towards the end, they were able to do the job and win the championship. So they are coming back to the Premiership. Yes, Kelechi Iheanacho, if they retain him back at the Premiership, Wilfred Ndidi back at the Premiership. Fatawu, if that's how they call his name, I don't know how to pronounce it. But we know the Nigerian boys are back in the Premiership. And very quickly they're back like they never left. So brilliant one from Leicester City, brilliant one from the management of Leicester City. And let's see how long they last in the Premiership now that they're back in it.
It's seeming like it is not how hard you fall, it is how fast you rise up from the fall. That's the lesson from Leicester this morning.
Yep, that's the lesson today.
Let's find a story here. The United States and Mexico withdrew their joint bid for the 2027 Women's World Cup on Monday, just days before FIFA is due to vote to award the tournament at a meeting in Bangkok.
And I'm sure FIFA will be thinking in their head, it'll be fantastic, because think about it, the 2026 Men's World Cup, Women's World Cup, will be holding in America. And then it would have been nice to, in America and Mexico, and then it would have been nice to just continue with the same facilities, with the same everything for 2027 for the women. That would have been nice, but maybe America felt that, the pressure will be too much, because we always look at the fact that, the stadiums would already have been built, the roads, the hotels will still be available, and everything will be working. But you forget the pressure that the government has to put a lot of money into developing the infrastructure, and maintaining that infrastructure for that level of use, and even for the visitors that are coming. We just think people will just arrive, but they have to look at how many people are coming. They always calculate all those things, what they would need for more people coming in during that period. And so maybe the government just thought about it that, it'd be too much hosting back-to-back tournaments for them at once. So they're not saying they're not going to host the Women's World Cup, but they're pushing it. They're going to try and host the 2032? Or 2031, but they're moving it to the next bid, so that they have enough time to breathe and maybe benefit from all the tourism and all the other plans that would have come up during the 2026 World Cup. But basically, they're just giving themselves a breather. It's a disappointment still, but what can I say? We'll go to Europe now for the women again, because I think it's the Europeans that are going to win it this time around. So America looked like they had a shout in, especially because they're hosting the Men's World Cup. But now that they've dropped out of the race, we go back to Europe. Not a bad place to go, eh? Not bad options, eh?
Yeah, that's true. Well, not like Cancun anyway, but let's get messages waiting. I remember what. Let's see. Messages already waiting for you. Taya comes up saying, NFF always not letting people know what you are doing. Congrats to Finidi George. I wish him a successful campaign as our coach. I hope he can adopt a local talents into the squad, and hope it was supported by the NFF, because the interview granted by Samson Siasia is very damning. PSG shouldn't have a problem against Borussia Dortmund unless Karim Adeyemi and his team have eaten fufu. I wish Silva a successful career, that after leaving Chelsea. Klopp should take note of when to make announcement. Tega, there's been spending cap for EPL clubs, but trust Ted Burley, chairman, wey sabi find loophole. Till tomorrow, I will say the character of Jamie Vardy is far better than Harry Kane. Sink or swim, he's a true leader.
This is what I always say about Harry Kane. Because everybody like world class, brilliant. I've never bought into the Harry Kane hype. Yes, he's scoring goals aplenty. but there is that extra X factor that he doesn't have. And like someone just mentioned, look at Jamie Vardy. His goals have brought trophies. Where are your trophies?
Hmm. Emeka Onelum has answers for us. It says, I think the reason Finidi was picked was because it was part of the Jose Peseiro team that took us to the final of AFCON, just like how Joe Bomfrey was a deputy to Clemens Westorff and did us proud. I suggest we give Finidi our full support, especially when we see he's moving in the right direction. As for Thiago Silva, he may be expressing sadness outside, but in his mind, he's screaming, Okbeo, like Alvarez. Let him, like Alvarez, let him jackpot to more better club. And then Big E from K2 says Madrid was a senior team over Bayern. The second leg will be hot for Bayern. Jude Bellingham seems invincible on the pitch this fall, but I foresee PSG scale through tonight. Mbappe with 2 smooth goals. I see what you did there, Biggie from K2. Then Ibuku is here waiting. He says, I can't wait to see Jamie Vardy back scoring goals in the Premiership. Madrid is a beast. That should not be toyed with in the Champions League. Ibuku from K2. What time for just one message from YouTube, and it's from Abiodu Obisheson saying, Finidi appointed as the coach of Super Eagles. Now, wow, another season of politricking, rude interference, and inconsistent output from players. Tega, they won't allow him to work. Back to square one. That's all the messages we can take, Tega.
All right. So we hope that they will allow him to work, and let's see how he succeeds with the Super Eagles. Because yes, his success is our success too. Bragging rights. Remember what we did at the AFCON? We dragged everybody. We better start succeeding and qualify for the next World Cup. All right. So that note, I just want to say thank you for sending in your messages on this Workers' Day, and have a wonderful holiday.